Hey, what's up, people? Welcome to my review and in-depth analysis for the remaining stories of Star Wars Volume 4, A Shattered Hope, a series that was published by Dark Horse Comics in 2013. And it goes without saying that I really enjoyed this entire series. Every single volume. And now that I'm actually reading the last two stories in this collection, I feel like it was nearly impeccable. I recommend every volume. Every story was good and engaging. I didn't come across anything that I felt was no good or poor. The only thing that maybe I had a little bit of criticism against was some of the drawings in a couple of stories, but other than that, this collection by Dark Horse is outstanding and I highly recommend it. So I split the review of Volume 4 into two because I really enjoyed the first story called 5 Days of Sith, and I felt like it deserved its own video, its own review by itself. So if you haven't checked that out, please check that out. That story, 5 Days of Sith, was outstanding. But since we're moving on with Volume 4, we're going to be talking about the stories Where Droids Go to Die and a short story, very short, called Han Solo and Chewbacca in The Art of the Bad Deal. Now, in regards to Where Droids Go to Die, I thought it was well written. I liked it a lot. It was short. So both these stories are shorter than 5 Days of Sith. So to me, 5 Days of Sith was like the main attraction of Volume 4. However, Where Droids Go to Die and The Art of the Bad Deal are just as good, right? Now, Where Droids Go to Die, I really enjoyed the script by Brian Wood, who basically wrote this entire run for the most part. And the art by Carlos de Anda, love it. It's gorgeous. I really love his style. I love the coloring as well. And it was a great story. So we're basically getting a continuation of the story that's been laid down since the first volume. And it just needs to be noted that The Art of the Bad Deal has nothing to do with basically the chronology of this series. It's a standalone story, right? Now, going back to this story, Where Droids Go to Die, I really loved it. And it ties off nicely. And again, this series really pays tribute to Princess Leia. If there's one thing I take away from this entire 4-volume collection, is that this series really made Princess Leia amazing, right? If she wasn't already amazing. Like, it really paid her respect. It really fleshed out her character. It really illustrated her as a warrior, a leader, and it showed her coordinating with her fellow comrades, with Luke, Han, all of them. It did an outstanding job capturing the spirit of the original Star Wars movie. For real, it was outstanding. I really loved how they depicted Princess Leia in this run, and this story is no different. So our story begins on a kind of junkyard planet called Lotho Minor. And we have an entirely new character introduced to us called Saren Song, who is being hunted by an IG bounty hunter droid. Now, initially, I thought this was IG-88, but it turns out that it's an entirely IG bounty hunter droid called IG-2000. Now, Saren Song is an intelligence agent for the rebels. And she's been doing this for such a long time that she's gone beyond the parameters of the given time that was basically given to her, right? So she was basically saying, you got to go on this mission, the Rebel Alliance, go on this mission, come back at X date. She didn't come back. She's just been continuing her mission, right? Which is basically observing geological surveys from the Empire of planets, right? So she's just been on this mission for years. And she's kind of lost contact with other living beings outside of her droid, right? This astromech droid who she is very close to and very fond of, and it's basically her only friend, right? Now, she is also the childhood friend of Princess Leia. So that's another important detail of this story that's going to have a very important impact on the Leia character. Now, since she is being hunted by an IG bounty hunter droid, Saren Song calls Princess Leia for help, right? Using an encrypted message through the HoloNet. Now, in regards to what's going on with Leia, Luke, and Han, Leia receives the message and she asks Luke and Han for help in order to rescue Saren Song, right? And I just have to say that the relationship between Han and Leia, I love it. It's well executed. You are totally able to perceive through the writing in this story that they're still kind of pretending not to like each other, but you can tell that they like each other, right? The writing, Brian Wood's writing for Han Solo is outstanding. He really captures the character. He knows the character. All his lines, his dialogue, totally sound like something that Han Solo would say, right? Now, Saren tries to leave Lotho Minor, but she is being tracked by the IG-2000 character, right? The IG droid. She's unaware of it though. So he basically puts a tracking device on her ship and he's following her without her knowing. Now, once Han, Leia, and Luke and Chewbacca arrive in the Millennium Falcon at Lotho Minor, they are immediately attacked by IG-2000. As soon as they arrive, they're attacked. And Han, fortunately, is able to outmaneuver the IG droid. And, you know, the banter between all these characters, Chewbacca, Han, Luke, Leia, it's like you're watching the original Star Wars film. It's well written and it's done impeccably. Now, in regards to what's going on with Saren, we get some excellent character development from this character. Saren Song wonders about her family, right? She's been gone for so long that she wonders what's been going on with them. She wonders if they even care about her whereabouts. And most importantly, she believes that they must think that she's dead, right? And this is a very sad moment for her. She starts to cry, and you know, it's her dealing with loneliness and the decisions that she's made in her life, right? And the commitment that she's made to the Rebel Alliance. It's almost like she's given up her original family for the family that is the Rebel Alliance. However, she hasn't even been in touch with that family. She's been by herself for years. I think it's like 3 or 4 years or something since she's had any contact with anybody outside of just her droid. So she's just been scouting and observing the Empire. And so she's really lonely, right? And really sad, and she's really questioning the decisions that she's made in her life, but she's committed to the Rebel Alliance, and it goes without saying that is very admirable. Now, this kind of character moment is juxtaposition with Leia, who confides in Luke, right? And she's tired of losing people. So those are the sentiments that she is basically conveying to Luke, that she's tired of losing people because, you know, Han and Luke, they're kind of like, what makes this Saren Song person so important? Right, that we got to go through all this. And then Leia's like, well, she's a childhood friend. And then they're like, oh, okay, so she's a friend. And then Leia is like, not really. I haven't talked to her in years since I was a little kid. And then it brings up that question, well, why are we doing this? And then Leia's like, I'm just sick and tired of losing people. And you got to keep in mind that she lost her entire home planet of Alderaan, right? So if anyone has a right to feel that way, it's Leia, because she's lost so many people. She lost her entire home planet, her family, everybody that she's ever known, her culture, all that, right? So as a result of IG-2000 attacking the Millennium Falcon. The Falcon needs repair, so Chewbacca and Han start working on the repairs for the Falcon. And actually, my bad, it's actually Leia and Han that repair the Falcon, but Chewbacca's there doing his work too. And I only want to distinguish because the banter, again, between Leia and Han is so well written. Great banter. It's funny. It's totally believable. You really think that these two characters in this comic are the same Han and Leia in the movies. Now, Sarah Song sends Leia an encrypted, basically an encrypted message that contains the coordinates of her whereabouts, right? And she sends it over the HoloNet and tells Leia that she is at Oak Prime, right? Or Oka Prime, something like that, right? And this planet is basically kind of like a national, or not national, but it's like a forest preservation planet or something like that, right? And then they are followed by IG-2000 to Saren's destination, right? And then an attack is initiated by IG-2000, and in this attack, Saren Song loses her only friend that she's had for the past 3 or 4 years, and that is her astromech droid, and she's devastated by this. Again, this is the only friend that she's had for so long because she's been basically living in isolation. Now, Han and IG-2000 have an epic dogfight, which, again, brilliantly illustrated, brilliantly written, totally enjoyed it, totally thought it was fun to read, and each panel was gorgeous to look at, right? Now, the way our heroes were able to defeat IG-2000 was this. So, initially, Han in the Millennium Falcon was missing all his shots. And basically, Luke and Leia, they're like, what's going on? Why are we missing? So nobody is sitting actually in the gun turret for the Millennium Falcon because there's been some kind of modification where it can automatically fire and aim and target, and it's missing. And then our protagonists are like, well, what the hell's going on? I thought the whole point of having this auto turret, this thing that can do aim and shoot by itself, I thought that the whole point was that it was good. It would be impeccable. It would be accurate, right? And then IG-2000, unfortunately, is just too smart because it's basically a droid fighting a droid. It's technology fighting technology. And Han explains that the IG-2000 is just too smart, that it's able to outmaneuver all the shots from the Millennium Falcon. So what actually happens and how our heroes are able to win is that Luke steps in and uses the Force to guide the lasers. And when he does that, he is able to destroy IG-2000, right? Another epic display of the Force, which is exemplified by Luke Skywalker, right? And you got to remember, this is before Empire Strikes Back, so he's still a student, right? This is all still new to him. Nevertheless, this was an amazing display of his skills and a brilliant way to illustrate that he is strong with the Force. And then once they destroy IG-2000, they're happy, they celebrate, and Leia reunites with Saren Song, and she basically has to, it's just a little moment in the story. So basically Leia's kind of like, well, I'm happy you're alive. I'm happy to be reunited with you. It's great to see you and all this stuff. However, it's going to be kind of tricky to explain to the Rebel Alliance what you've been up to for the past 3 or 4 years since you've been living off the grid. They're going to have lots of questions. They're going to wonder if you truly are working for the Rebel Alliance or whether you're an Imperial spy. So in order to prove her sincerity and her loyalty to the Rebel Alliance, Saren provides Leia with the Imperial Geological Survey data that she's collected over the years, right? And basically the story concludes with the fact that they can use this geological survey data that the Empire has been using in order to find a new base, because basically they could see which planets the Empire has an interest in and which planets they don't. And that basically ends this entire 4-volume run of Star Wars, which was published by Dark Horse Comics. And I think it ties in excellently to The Empire Strikes Back, even though it doesn't really say concrete that, oh, we're going to go to Hoth, but it still ties in well, because you can assume that they're going to use this this geological survey data to find Hoth. And I think that's a great way to end this story, right? And tie it into Empire Strikes Back. And not only that, but it leaves it ambiguous enough that you can go back and also read the old newspaper comic strip, which was written by Archie Goodwin, that explained the whole story between the first movie and the second movie, or Empire Strikes Back, right? So the story between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. I don't think this series contradicts that in any way, right? Because this series leaves a lot open, right? And I really like that. So you can enjoy both series and feel like they don't contradict each other. And I will be reviewing that series by Archie Goodwin, the old school newspaper comic strip written by Archie Goodwin, which is now collected in a series called Classic Star Wars, right? So I'm looking forward to that. But up next, we have a nice short story called The Art of the Deal, which focuses mainly on Chewbacca and Han Solo. Now, I thought this story, even though it's super short, I thought it was, well written. I thought it was nice. I thought it was charming. I think the author did a good job telling a nice kind of humorous, adventurous story involving Chewbacca and Han Solo that illustrates the classic scoundrel and smuggler that gets into trouble and is able to walk off into the sunset like the classic space cowboy. So, in The Art of the Bad Deal, basically Han has to deliver some spice or some product to a character named Verhandle, and because he's late, he has to basically take a 40% cut in his earnings, right? And then there's this humorous exchange where initially Verhandle's like, all right, you're only going to get 80%, and then Han's like, what? Oh, 70%. He's like, wait. And then he's like, oh, 60%. And then Han just shuts up and is like, okay, I better just shut up and settle for my 60%. Now, Verhandle's goons try to take over the Falcon, right? By hiding in those, like, I guess you want to say, underneath the floor panels, right? Like we've seen in the original film, A New Hope. Right? They try to hide under the floor panel, so when they take off, Han and Chewbacca take off, they can basically just jump out of the floor panels and take over the Millennium Falcon. Unfortunately, Verhandle's goons have no idea how strong and powerful a Wookiee is, because when they try to pop out of the floor panels and take over the Falcon, Chewbacca is basically kind of in the back. So they all rush to the cockpit to get Han, and they're like, we're taking over the Falcon. And, and Han is kind of just like surprisingly relaxed, and he's too relaxed. And Han is like, okay, go ahead. It's all yours, right? Because he knows that they're not thinking about Chewbacca, the massive Wookiee. And then as soon as they realize that, Chewbacca basically just kicks the living shit out of Verhandle's men, right? And basically that's it. That's the end of the story, right? They tried to take over the Falcon and they failed epically. And that's the end of the story. It was very short. I wouldn't even say it was the length of an entire issue. But again, it was a nice, humorous little story that was charming and totally illustrated the relationship, the classic relationship between Han Solo and Chewbacca, and I really enjoyed it. So again, this series was amazing. I mean, I give this volume an A+. I really enjoyed it. I mean, these two stories with 5 Days of Sith were a great read. I totally enjoyed it, and I highly recommend, if you enjoy the original trilogy, that you pick up this series, right? All 4 volumes. You will not be disappointed, especially if you're a fan of Princess Leia. So, thank you guys for listening to this review and in-depth analysis of Part 2 of A Shattered Hope. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and share. May the Force be with you. And last but not least, one love, people. Take care.